Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractic connection out in Australia with Dr. Therese Perdidjian. Dr. Therese, can you guide and get us started by just introducing yourself, and then also after you've introduced yourself, reflect, here and now, how are you doing, and then also introduce or reflect on that time when you decided that you wanted to become a chiropractor and what it was that attracted you down this path.
Oh, yes, you just gave me goosebumps. Hi, everyone. My name's Therese Perdidjian. I'm a chiropractor from Sydney, Australia, and I also studied in Sydney, Australia. In addition to, I did extra training. I'm also a doula and a childbirth educator. And I have formed a group which is titled Conscious Health Practitioners, where I do lead uh, conscious-based practices, so practice management in addition to childbirth education. And the last thing, I run the BGI seminars here in Australia. So what got me into chiropractic? If you want to say it was by fluke, I was friends with I was friends with someone whose father was a chiropractor, and I said, "What does your dad do?" And she said, "Why don't you just book yourself in and see?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I actually just booked myself in, not knowing anything about chiropractic. And within that first adjustment, now this man, Dr. Keith Bastian, is a master at his work, and he's an SOT practitioner, and he did this lightest touch on my neck. And as he's doing this lightest touch, there was some sort of combining or a melding that happened. I don't know how else to explain it. But when he does this gentle release, so it's this just gentle touch, my whole body wakes up internally in a way that I didn't know it was sleeping. And I have this realization. And the realization is that I'm responsible for my body, I'm responsible for my thoughts, and I'm responsible for my life. And I get off the table going, well, what is that? Like, what is this? And I'm like, how come no one told me about chiropractic? How come my parents didn't tell me about chiropractic? I'm like, this is a gift. Every human being should experience this gift. So it's kind of like I got a message to say, this is a gift, you're passing it on. And yeah, I never went back for my second treatment. I enrolled myself into university, and that's been my journey since.
Wonderful. Can you talk about your upbringing leading up to that moment that might have pre-primed you to have such a deep and opening experience? Where were you at in life? What was your mindset? Were you in high school? Were you in college? And
No.
enrolling into university, how did that experience maybe shape the direction or the path that you chose of which university you would go to or where you wanted to live or any of these questions that come up for high school and college students that are trying
Okay.
to find their way in life?
Love this. So where I was in life was I had just finished a business degree. So I had done a 3-year business degree, and I grew up in a family business. So I was all about businesses. I wanted to open up a burger chip franchise. There's all these things that I wanted to do. And then after I did my 3 years of my degree, I actually went on a little holiday. Anyway, I came back from that holiday, and I was doing some jobs here or there, and nothing seemed to fit. Like it just didn't seem to clash. I wasn't ready to kind of go in and open up my own business. I wanted some expertise in different types of businesses just to kind of get an understanding of how different businesses do things differently. Anyway, and then that's when I went to the chiropractor. And so it was quite interesting because I didn't know, in a really interesting way, I feel like saying I didn't know I was lost. Okay, that's one way of putting it. And then after my first adjustment, I said, "Where do you learn this?" And he had studied at Palmer. And I'm like, "Okay, where's that?" And he's like, "That's in the United States." And my head went, "Oh, I have to go to the United States to learn this. This is the only place you can." Anyway, I further found out that there is a college in New Zealand, there's places in Australia. And then the easiest for me was, oh, there's one in Sydney. So Sydney was just the closest university. So how I chose, I didn't really do much research into where I actually wanted to go. I just went, oh, what's the closest? because I figured I was going to learn the healing arts. And when I went, uni was a little bit different. My journey was a little bit different. I love going through the university system in Australia. I think it's awesome. And at the same time, there was a bit of missing for me, which was kind of someone explaining what that wisdom was that I experienced in my body. And it wasn't so I would go to every single lecturer that would come and give a talk. And it ranged from the biomechanic to the emotional to the spiritual. Like I would go and listen to anyone because I was wanting to hear the wisdom that I felt, like what I felt in my body. And then that's when I came across Sue Brown. So that kept me on my journey.
And so just to be clear, you did 3 years of business in undergrad. This is like your undergraduate education. And then you transferred to another university for chiropractic school. And you would go to different seminars in chiropractic school, or you would go to seminars before you got to chiropractic school?
No. So I did the 3-year degree, the undergrad in business, and I majored in marketing. Then I finished that, did a little bit of working, and then I re-enrolled myself in chiropractic. And all the seminars that I went to would be chiropractic seminars whoever would come out.
I see. So the premise of this podcast or this conversation is that if we had a pre-chiropractic experience that was intentional and that was structured and that gave opportunities for students to really come into the fold in a way that was helping explore and expose them to more than just one way of thinking or one exposure that might be limited in certain ways, that they could arrive at chiropractic school with a little more awareness. If you could kind of go back with the wisdom and the experience that you maybe have today and have a conversation with that student who is entering into chiropractic school today, or maybe didn't even get to chiropractic school yet, how would you kind of maybe play guidance counselor and bring them into the fold of seeing themselves, their identity, becoming a chiropractor and becoming a chiropractic student? I'm just wondering if you can offer some words of wisdom to that high school or college version of yourself who's about to go to chiropractic school or who's going into it.
It's a very good question, Ben. I'm just going to sit with it for a moment. And I'm going to sit with it because for me it was, and it's like I'm actually talking to my young self. So I'm like talking to young Therese, if that's how I'm putting it. And it was such a knowing. So there's one thing, there was a knowing within me, and I just actioned it. So I feel like saying, just from my experience, if there's a knowing, don't second guess it, do it, and then see what happens. I've been quite lucky and quite grateful that my journey has been that I did no research on any school. I did not even go and observe a chiropractor. I just had one adjustment. And I have been very, very fortunate that it panned out the way it did for me. And I'm also more curious. My desire was to learn that wisdom, and that's what fulfilled me. So if there is, and they don't know how, if they're thinking about getting in, it is what is your desire? Is your desire to open up clinics that will come, through? Is your desire to intensely study and know every bit of the, I don't know, say neurology or chemistry or whatever part of it that will come through?
Absolutely. So getting back to your story and continuing that, you meet Sue Brown. Can you maybe just share a little bit of an introduction into who Sue Brown is to you, what she represents, and who what she's brought forth, and what what her teachings were really at, what's at the heart of her teachings?
Beautiful. So Sue Brown is the founder and developer of Biogeometric Integration, BGI for short. And this is one of the seminars or one of the extra learnings that you can take to really see the potential and your mastery. So to really understand what's happening with your hands and to really deliver an adjustment that you know exactly how it was unfolding, what it did, and the results that it's actually going to give. So I met Sue Brown when I was in second year. I attended a Friday night lecture and then proceeded to attend the BGI one. And I remember at that Friday night lecture that she gave, I just sat there and I went, this woman is actually explaining to me scientifically the wisdom that I had felt in my body after that first adjustment. So during the seminars, and so Sue was my mentor and my teacher. And one of the things that I really love, and her premise is constantly seeing the potential in the system. So you're not being boxed to, you've got this issue, or this is what's wrong with you, or I need to diagnose you, is going, okay, so I get it. You got a little bit of pain. Let's see what we can do with it. Let's actually work with it. Where's the potential in this? So if you want it released from your system, we can actually do that. So BGI seminars, if I say at the end of the day, is looking at your own mastery to be. So it's this practice. And if you talk about chiropractic, it's a practice, right? So you're actually really tuning at the end of the day of your potential and what your practice is and how you're actually delivering it.
Beautiful. And if a student is interested in exploring more about BGI, are there any specific resources that you're really sort of acknowledging to be the definitive way to read about and listen to and watch BGI professionals expressing themselves?
Well, sorry, there's a mosquito here. I don't know if you can see the mosquito. So, okay, so if you want resources, depending where you are, if you're in the United States, you can go to bgihq.com. If you're in Australia, it's bgiaustralia.com. And if you're in Europe, it's BGI Europe. I think it's bgieuropeseminars.com. So any of those will actually give you the resources that you need if you actually wanted to read Sue's papers, look at her, there's some YouTubes that are up. If you type in BGI seminars, I think there's YouTubes of Sue that come up. There's some really great resources to look at. Now, if you're actually wanting a practitioner, you can actually, there's a directory in the BGI HQ website. You can go and have a look at it, because BGI is all about your mastery. It's about how you deliver what you deliver. So it doesn't matter what technique it is that you do. So you could go and observe, say, an ABC practitioner, or what is it? The Atlas. Say it.
There's 100 of them. There's Gonstead. There's Atlas orthogonal. There's upper cervical. There's applied kinesiology.
There's NET. Like, there is so many. So it doesn't, like, it's actually the way the practitioner practices, okay, how they're actually knowing what it is and the certainty that they have underneath their hands. That's actually the differentiating factor. So they can range from seeing people one-on-one, or they can range from seeing people in open plan. I would not say that there's a specific way of actually, not a technique as such.
Absolutely. And if we could just turn this back to you, so we're not speaking about things that are outside of us, it becomes almost an entity that we're talking about, but just maybe sharing on that note your expression, maybe just reflecting on how you've been able to experience life as a chiropractor in practice, and the types of experiences you have, the intentions that you have when you go to practice, just what this ride and journey has been like for you.
Okay. It's a big question, Ben. And would it serve if I answer it with the different practice models that I was in?
I like keeping it open-ended, because we're just exploring the potential where this conversation could go. I don't want to limit it with any specifics. I just want to give you free rein to think about the person you're speaking to as being either a chiropractic student
Yeah.
who's wanting you to go really deep for them to fully understand the nuts and bolts of like how you do what you do or who you are and how you are who you are, or a prospective student who you're just blowing their mind with just this 10th stage of expression and they're on stage 1.
Okay. So first I want to speak to the chiropractic student. So it's interesting because one of the things that my journey as soon as I graduated was I was in a clinic, and in that clinic, that practitioner was busy. So in my head, I thought if I do what they do, I'd be busy too. However, seeing 8 people a week and then 11 was like, yay, in first year out, that kind of doesn't really pay the rent. Okay. And so I had to really tune in to go, okay, well, what is my expression like? How do I actually want to do this? And so that ended up me doing a locum. Now the locum was interesting because the locum ended up being a very high volume practice. And I'm like, okay, I can do high volume too. So that got me seeing a lot more people. And then that kind of got me through a threshold to understand, to go, well, do I actually really want to practice this? Like, how do I really want to practice? And my premise was always, how do I want to, like, what is the best thing for Therese? How does Therese want to practice? And also there's this knowing with how I actually want to practice is what the flow will actually be. And that's what will actually reap the rewards. So it wasn't until I kind of then decided to just back off a little bit and just really go, you know what? It's okay if I see X amount of people, because if I'm giving my 100% and I'm practicing me, that's actually better than seeing hundreds and hundreds of people and not actually being happy. So there would be times where I'd be seeing a lot of people and it didn't serve me. And I would like drive home crying and I'd be in tears in the car for an hour and a half because I was either exhausted or it just didn't work for me. And I would do that. I would do that for a period. Like I really had to go through those ups and downs to really understand what my practice style was actually like. So it was a bit of a journey, and I don't know if that gives something to someone, especially like if you are a student, or maybe you're just I don't know, maybe you have just graduated, or if something doesn't gel, I kind of sit with it till I really go, you know what, that's actually not for me. And then that allows me then to discover more what actually works for me.
And how do you expand your consciousness? Because if you're trying to continually evolve your experience of the world as being a chiropractor who's maybe new in practice or who's a couple years in, but finding where the blinders are, where the blind spots are, like what have been some strategies or some things that you've chosen to do for yourself to continually be learning, growing, and evolving?
So back then, I would attend any seminar that actually caught my interest. So that was the first thing. So during chiropractic studies, I would just attend seminars that caught my interest. And I have done a lot of chiropractic seminars. And it wasn't until I kind of really decided now as a practitioner how I wanted to really practice and how I wanted practice to look like. I then went on to the self-development journey. So that's when I stopped the chiropractic seminars and I did more self-development seminars. I also did meditation. I also did a lot of reading, kind of just shifted the focus of, okay, I get all the chiropractic, I get all the techniques. Okay, what's that next thing for me? That's how my journey went.
Mm-hmm. And so just because it's probably easier to speak more present time, like where are your passions at? Where are your interests? Where's your focus? I know that you've got yourself involved in a lot of places, but for you, where's your focus and interest and drive coming from these days?
I can explain it this way. So I'm very lucky to live in a place that has a lot of trees and is surrounded by nature. So that keeps me very grounded. It's also made me a little bit of a introvert or no, I wouldn't say a recluse, but it's allowed me to have that space and that time to just be. And the more I learn how to just be, the more I can be authentic. And the more authentic that I feel like I'm just so true to me, the more that's where I feel the drive is coming, because it's an exploration now of Therese. It's an exploration of, oh, what's the other thing that I can bring? What's the other thing that I can do? So that drive is really about, the more grounded I am, the more, if you want to say sit in silence, but like the head noise is actually flat, the more there's a self listening, the more knowing on the which thought to action, or which self listening to action on. That's what drives me, because it's all exciting, right?
Absolutely. And maybe you could just touch a little deeper on how the art of listening plays such a central role of the practice of chiropractic and being a chiropractor and relating to others, but also listening on a more subtle level to the different layers of tissues, the different experiences that are stored in the body. Maybe talk a little bit about the potential energy theory of subluxation and how it's not limited to the physical structure and the physical matter, but it actually is about how that is expressed. And if you could kind of just touch on how important listening has been for you as a chiropractor, and in what ways listening is related to the study of chiropractic.
Okay. So the first thing I do want to share is, it's through chiropractic that I actually learnt how to listen. So that's the first thing. So first it was listening to the body. Now, we're going to say listening, yes, we can actually listen with our ears, okay? And at the same time, when you're palpating, it's, if you want to feel what's happening underneath your hands, that's actually a totally different type of listening. So as you're actually, when you just mentioned the different tissues, there are different tissues, and they feel, or you can listen to them differently. And so, as Sue Brown had in BGI, how she has broken it down, and I'll refer this because this is the one that I primarily resonate with, use, and that's the one that's helped me to listen the most, is the first one. There's like, how do the muscles feel? How do the muscles sound? So if you're actually palpating, how do you know that the energy or the potential energy is actually stored in the muscles to be moved? The next one is the soft connective tissue. How does that actually, that's a little bit more stringy, right? Or that's a little bit more zingy. How does that actually feel? How do you listen to that, right? Because when there's potential that's stored in those tissues, there's actually a story with it, right? The last one is the osseous. How does the bone actually buzz? Or when you listen to it, what is it actually telling you? Which I'll actually lead into what Sue Brown's potential energy theory of subluxation is. So, and I'm gonna break it down because I think I actually do have it. I think I may be able to read it to you if I have it right here. One moment, Ben. Can I open that up on my computer and I can actually read to you the theory? So, one moment as it's coming up. So there's the potential energy theory of subluxation, and it is okay. We are subluxation is a term utilized in chiropractic to describe the state of heightened chaos that a living system expresses when it is unable to fully process input from the environment. The heightened state of chaos has many far-reaching effects which alter the body's ability to function optimally. These alterations include, but are not limited to, neurological and biomechanical distortions, frequently associated with the spine, and changes to the neurochemistry and the electromagnetic field of the body. So that's Sue's definition of the potential energy theory of subluxation. What I love about this is the first one, it actually addresses that, you know what, subluxation is a term used in chiropractic. Now, then it says it's a heightened state of chaos, right? And if it's unable to fully process. And so there's this one thing in that there's particular events that happen in our life. So a particular situation or a particular something happens, someone says something, right? And your body can either go, oh yeah, or your body can go, ugh, and then kind of like lock up, right? It's like it either gets offended in one way or it wants to defend itself. I need to put my boundaries up in one way or another. That actually locks into the system. And that locks into the system, then the body kind of has a story with it. It really doesn't know how to actually process that through. So you can actually just, skip along day to day. Something in it kind of just locks in. And that just then what that starts to do is that actually starts to actually change your neurochemistry in some way. Your neurochemistry changes, your biomechanic changes, right? So say if you're really nice and happy and then all of a sudden you actually start doubting yourself and there's a little bit, you look at one's posture, there's a little bit of shoulders rolling forward, head coming in, or you're trying to think a lot, your head's totally forward. And so your structure changes. Then what starts to happen is your electromagnetic field changes, okay? So different things just start happening, or people start saying the same things, or you just feel like I don't want to say you're in a rut, but you just feel like there's like a sticking point and you don't know how to actually move from that. And I want to share an example, and this is my personal example that I share. When I was younger, there was choir tryouts. So I was around the age probably 9 or 10. And there was choir tryouts. The whole school tried out. I didn't know that there was choir tryouts, but we all went in about 4 to 5 people at a time. And there was the nun sitting at the piano, and she played a hymn, and we all sang. So there was like 4 or 5 girls in a row, and I am singing to the top of my lungs, Ben. I'm like, Hail Mary, like I'm going for it. She comes off at the end of she finishes, we finished the little hymn. She comes off, she taps me on the head, looks at the teacher who had the clipboard and nods her head. And I'm like, yeah, that's how you do it, girls. Like, you really got to go for it. Like I was going for it. Anyway, either later that afternoon or early the next day, I found out that there were 6 people who did not get into the choir band. 6, 4 boys and 2 girls. I was one of the girls, okay? I was beyond distraught. I'm like, I gave it my best. Like, I gave everything I had. Like, I was belting that hymn. Anyway, and then I went home and I went to my dad and I said, I was in tears. Like, this was just such a pivotal point for me. And I'm like, Dad, I didn't get into the choir. This is so unfair. I don't understand. Like, I gave it everything. So don't worry about how I actually sung. That didn't go through my head. What came through my head was I gave it everything I had and they rejected me. And Dad's like, it's all right. We'll go and talk to the school. And he's like, sing for me. So I start singing and he's like, no, stop singing. He's like, the music goes one way, your voice goes another way. He's like, no, you're not to be in the choir. So what happens now is my dad, who was supposed to be on my side, again, it's my expression, right? Turns around and says, your expression's really bad. Now, they're just saying you're not singing on key, right? But I'm taking this as you're not actually accepting my expression. So I had this thing of I just really wanted to sing. So when I was about 15 or 16, I went to singing lessons. And after about 5 lessons, the teacher said she just no longer wanted to teach. And I'm thinking, do you no longer want to teach me, or are you retired? Like, what is going on? So actually that was it. But what it realized for me was my expression really muted. I, like, even in my speech, in my way of sharing, there was a lot where I just went, oh, you're too much, Therese. Your expression is just way too full force. Just stop it. So that really kind of made me just not as, I feel like saying my zest for life went. And it wasn't till the journey of just kind of going through it. And actually, so the subluxation was thinking that no one liked my expression. Okay. And it wasn't till that journey of understanding that it wasn't my expression. It was, I just had to train a little bit. Okay. But that subluxation caught me for like over 20 years, I tell you, okay? Till now, I can tell you I can actually sing in key or in tune, and that's quite exciting. So that if I share that, that's kind of like the example of the potential energy theory of subluxation. My electromagnetic field completely changed. Like, I kept people saying that your expression was way too much. My neurochemistry changed. I can tell you that. Like, I wasn't feeling as bright. I wasn't feeling myself, and my biochemistry changed. So there wasn't that much throat stuff happening. But if anything was to go in my system, the first thing that would go was my throat.
There's so much detail in there to tease apart, but thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing a story that helps connect us to the experience that somebody has when they're subluxated from a neurochemical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from an electromagnetic standpoint. As we progress, if you could kind of just reflect, now that you've been in the game for like 20 years or 15, 20 years, past, present, future, where's the culture been? Where is it at now? And where's the culture going? And when I say the culture, I just mean through your lens, through your eyes, your experience of BGI, chiropractic, being in Australia, being on this planet. I'm just curious where you're at.
Okay. So I think it's 12 or 13 years out. So that's the first thing. Now, that's interesting, and it is all my views, and it's all my lenses, and it's feel like how I've actually matured more into me, and how I actually see it, and how more comfortable I feel being me. That's the lens that I'm actually coming from. Australia is quite interesting, and it's different from the United States. I've had a lot of experience, and I know a lot of practitioners, and I've been to many seminars in the United States. There's a different culture there to what there is in Australia. Having said that, I feel that people are searching. I feel like people are really, really searching for a truth. And I think that they know that chiropractic delivers that. And sometimes in practice, they may be doing something a little bit different because that's just what they know how to do, or that's just what for them brings the numbers in or brings the money in, or however you want to frame it, right? But I do feel like how it's going is there's a different authenticity that's actually coming through for practitioners, even for students. Like when they're coming, they are coming raw, they are coming vulnerable, they're going, let's do this. And I think maybe the past 2 years may have shaped that. There's a different truth, there's a different knowing, there's a different, this is how I'm actually moving forward. That may have shaped a couple of things.
You about to travel to Adelaide with a new chiropractic school that's embracing BGI and the culture of chiropractic. Can you speak to what the future might hold for chiropractic in Australia as a result of there now being an outlet, which is, let's just say, a community of passionate chiropractors that care deeply about the profession, and the changes that are happening are going to be now having a presence touching them from a true chiropractic, roots chiropractic point of view?
Well, so there is the school in Adelaide. However, I'm not going into the school. There is a beautiful community, and it's interesting. The students phoned me. There was 3 different students who reached out and just had hour-long conversations with them. Because they're seeking, they're really hungry. They're like, give it to me. And so as I've had these conversations with these students, I'm like, all right, let's actually let's set up. Let's set up. Let's bring BGI down to Adelaide. And now we have a handful of practitioners coming down who are seeking, who are really interested in actually stepping in, who are not scared to actually step in, to actually understand what this thing of chiropractic is, what their practice is, and also listen to some of the wisdom and some of the truth that Sue actually mapped out for us.
Absolutely. No, I'm just trying to tease out of you, like, what are you excited about? What are you observing? Just because you're engaged. You're engaged with the profession out there. You're engaged with chiropractors, whether it be through these seminars you're teaching with Katina, Katina's been on here. Maybe talk about the inspiration for that and where that came from, and just what you plan on bringing forth in the upcoming years to chiropractors.
Okay. So I tell you, so in the immediate, I tell you what I'm excited about Adelaide. I'm actually excited what happens when there's practitioners who've been in practice for 20 plus years and they actually come and they're like, where was this? So I can't tell you how excited, because there are many chiropractors that are actually coming to the one in Adelaide. That's the first thing I actually do want to share. The second thing, you've mentioned Katina. So Katina is actually coming out in Australia, and together we're actually doing a manual adjusting seminar, which is very, very exciting. Now, Katina is my teacher and a dear, dear friend, and we have had many, many, many wonderful trips around the world. You know what? Just being, just doing, and having a lot of fun. And what I tell you, what I actually want to, what I do want to see in the future is actually a beautiful flow, and it's a beautiful flow for inside the practitioner themselves. So once you've got that flow within you, okay, whatever you're putting out of your hands, however you do your practice, it's actually going to flow. So it doesn't need to look like a particular way. And I do want to share a story that Katina and I have traveled a lot, and one of the trips I organized was to go to Armenia, and we visited a handful of orphanages there. Now, the exciting thing with that is, I'm like, Katina, I'm going to Armenia. Do you want to come? She's like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, oh, okay. Next thing you know, there is this mission trip that has just been laid out effortlessly. Okay. We just hopped on a plane, we got there, and everything was already mapped out for us. The people that we engaged with, the children that we saw, the therapists that we actually taught, the hospital wards that we closed and actually just started teaching the premise of just being, okay, and what chiropractic is about. That was actually a lot of fun, okay, because that was so much fun, because you actually just created something. And so what I love about Katina, it's in the state, you're constantly in a state of creation, you're constantly in a state of play. And when you're in that, you really don't know what's actually going to come. So what excites me so much for anyone who is in this field, okay, is what you can actually create. And I mean that is what you can create, not what it should be, not what your expectations are, but the fun things that you can do, like the fun things you can actually create.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you just having this conversation with me. And my hope and my goal with these conversations is to evoke out of you some deep truths and some meaning of what it's been like, so that people that are earlier on in their path can kind of just see down the road, or just take note of other people's experiences and stories, and then take notes and reflect on their own experience, and maybe just have a little bit more ease in their path to becoming a chiropractor. I think if we have a little more ease each step of the way and feel a little bit more guided and supported, not told what to do, but just given some questions, given some personal experiences that chiropractors have had, like you just shared, going to a new country with other chiropractors, having an organic experience with no expectations, and just having fun, seeing what's possible when you show up with your head, heart, and hands. Just ton of potential there. So I really appreciate that. Do you have any further questions or thoughts to give to a high school or college student who's thinking of becoming a chiropractor, and maybe inviting them to go and have certain experiences? Like you said, maybe they're in chiropractic school, maybe go have a mission trip or a service trip, and what that even is?
First thing, feel like saying, just do it. So just go. And if it's not for you and you don't like it, get out of it. But have that experience, because those experiences are going to shape you. If you want to do a mission trip, do a mission trip. If you want to go and observe a handful of practitioners, do that. If you want to go to a seminar, do that. If you want to do none of those and just go on a holiday, do that also. But whatever it is, just do it. Okay, step into it. And then you'll figure out either, oh, I had to get that out of my system, or, oh, you know what? Thanks, that's not for me. Boom, boom, boom. Go along to the next one. So, yeah, I feel like saying just step in. Whatever you feel in your heart, just step in.
And then lastly, just to speak to this project. So, I'm a very innovative thinker, outside the box thinker. I like to push the boundaries of reality and think through what's possible in this world. Being a chiropractor, I think that's what it really gave me, is like, where's the opportunity in the situation? How do I adapt to it? What are the solutions? And what are the obstructions to people reaching their full potential, or to situations expressing their full potential? And to me, the situation is that we've got an educational process which has pretty much looked exactly the same for 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 years. And my sort of question is how can it look different? And how do we birth people into the profession in a new and exciting way? So really thinking through the pre-chiro experience as a true audience, as a true community of people that are out there, that are trying to prepare, don't really know how to prepare. They're obviously listening to things like this. I hope they will, at least. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, of like, how do we ask new questions? What's emerging in your awareness of how the profession can really help chiropractors reach their full potential?
The first part of that question, where my mind went, was there's a system that we walk into which shapes us, okay? And for some, it can leave us very disheartened, okay? And for some, it could be like, get us excited. So I kind of was like somewhere in the middle. There was a lot of disheartening of the system. In addition to, when I focused on the potential, it was just it was so exciting. And so I'm very, very grateful of how the system did what it did, because it shaped me to actually be even more creative, to go, wow, if that's what's out there, how can I even be more creative? And how can I get a sense of peace of how it's all done? Now, for anyone who's actually, if you said, birthing their way through, how can we ease them in? I'm like, you know what? There's no easy way. So it's going to be whatever it's actually going to be. And if you think like about a baby that's birthing, you have no idea. Like, you really don't. You can plan all these things, right? And then, or all of a sudden, baby popped out, or all of a sudden, there was, it was how many 3 days of labor? I don't know, right? But we actually, we really don't know. But what we can do is the person that we can be in that place and in that time. And so that, I feel like saying, you know what, there's actually if I say there's no easy way, your journey is going to be your journey. It actually is all easy. It really is, how do you take it? Do you take the disheartened approach because that's not how it should be? Or do you take oh crap, okay, they're saying this, how can I, that fuels me to create something different. So I don't know, I'm not the best person at all to ask what the future, or how to, for educational systems, like, I'm not, but I am a person to go, they're doing that. I'll tell you what's missing in the education system. Do you know what's missing? It's someone to actually really talk about what's actually happening in here. What's actually happening to that spiritual or that soul self. So when I have my childbirth education classes for practitioners, I'm not talking about, yeah, it's pregnant. This is what you're going to get in the first trimester. This is what you're going to get in the second trimester. I'm actually talking about what's actually happening for the woman. What's happening for the bub? How can we actually listen to them on a different way as they're actually going through these different transitional stages? So I go, that's what I can create. When I look at what their patient management is like, and I've been to a lot of patient management courses, okay, I'm like, oh, you know what? So many people, I don't know how it is in the States, but they don't like doing scripts. They just feel so weird, and then they have to, make themselves okay with doing a script. You can be okay with doing a script, right? Then I go, what's actually not out there? Do you know what's not out there is actually a script that's actually about you. So in my patient management 6-week course, what I do is I actually have lead-in sentences, and you actually have to fill out who you are. So it's like, hi, I'm Ben. Can I tell you why I do what I do? Really authentic as to why you practice and what the next thing you're going to do and what's the next thing you're going to do, to really allow, that conversation. There's always a different listening. So for me, I can't change that education system. I'm so okay with it. Then I go, you know what? This is what I find that's missing. If someone else wants to come on that journey, I'm like, hey, it's actually a lot of fun because you can listen to people totally differently.
Amazing. So it sounds to me as though you've created opportunities for people that want a more embodied experience of childbirth, or just being pregnant, and equipping themselves with the skills and strategies of somebody who's empowered. No matter what situation arises, they're going to approach it from a place of strength and trust. And then also for chiropractors and chiropractic students, you've created this sort of conscious way of doing business, or crafting your own scripts and creating your own structures that are going to support who you are. Is that correct to say?
That is correct, Ben. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to share with the students. And I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.